Cuphead The Delicious Last Course is a run-and-gun video game DLC that is being developed and published by Studio MDHR. The name itself, Delicious Last Course, is a long version of DLC, and you get that if you take the first letter of each of the words. And the DLC itself was announced back in 2018 and has since been delayed 2 times since the original reveal. Let's break down the confirmed details, delays, and rumors of cut areas being reworked. As always, all the sources will be linked in the description below, so make sure to check those out and support those original articles. Also, make sure to follow me on Twitter at Fonct2, and let's get into everything we know about Cuphead The Delicious Last Course. I want to start by quickly touching on the development and some of the concerns or questions the community has about delays of the project. And I want to remind people that the original Cuphead was delayed multiple times as well. Originally, the team planned for a 2015 release and then pushed back to 2016 and then again to 2017. Which is not surprising at all. Studio MDHR is still a very small studio considering the quality of game they are able to produce, but they are also a studio that knows not to release games before they are ready. Also, the delays for the DLC, which I will touch on later, could be indicative that this DLC is larger than what most fans think and could almost be more of Cuphead 1.5. It could be larger than what most community members think of a normal DLC, but not enough content for a true sequel, and once again I'll touch on some more of these ideas later, but that's how I think of it now after doing this research and putting this video together, that it's more of a 1.5 and stepping stone for the sequel itself. With that context out of the way, for previous delays on the franchise, let's move on to the reveal of the project itself. The first news of the DLC was in June of 2018. Studio MDHR released an announcement trailer and it gave a lot of new details. It starts by introducing the 3rd playable character in the series, but I do want to say this doesn't mean the game will be 3 players now. It will still be limited to 2, just now you will have a 3rd character to pick from. The character itself is a reworked version of the legendary Chalice, who was a non-playable character in the vanilla game, but the team decided to rework the character and story into something new. A new friendly character is also included called Chef Saltbaker, along with the team promising a new aisle, bosses, weapons, and charms. The trailer closed out by saying the DLC would be released in 2019 for the Xbox One, Windows 10, Steam, and GOG. Moving on, I am going to cover some details about characters, bosses, and areas that were given in the Art of Cuphead book. These could be seen as very slight potential spoilers if you don't want to know anything about the DLC before playing, but if you have been watching the trailers, everything I'm talking about has already been discussed. So if you're still here, and with that out of the way, let's keep going. The first page I want to touch on is for Miss Chalice, which says, quote, "Introducing the star of the delicious last course like you've never seen her before. The wonderful Miss Chalice. Plucky, smart, headstrong, and curious are just a few words to describe our ancient ghost come back to life for a brand new adventure. Looking to early forms of Minnie Mouse for inspiration, we took the key elements of the legendary Chalice, her chalice handles, straw, and mole, and simplified the rest of the design down for her youthful form. Her body structure and dimensions mirror that of Cuphead and Mugman to maintain a consistency in control and gameplay design. While her ghostly lineage allows us to grant her interesting new powers and variations on her core ability set, how Miss Chalice has come back to life and what type of predicament she's dragging the Cup brothers into is a mystery to be solved. But whatever the problem, Miss Chalice is always ready for adventure." The page closes out by saying, quote, "Miss Chalice, unlike Cuphead and Mugman, has a double jump, which only her second jump curling up into the spinning ball form. Since her first jump remains upright, we've had to animate her entire jump cycle with her aiming in all possible directions. As such, Miss Chalice's total number of animation frames is vastly higher than the original heroes." And right away, this got fans very excited because it sounds like there will be gameplay variety between Miss Chalice and the Cuphead brothers, and it will be substantial in terms of how the characters play. Along with the additional frames, which will give her a different look once the animation is all said and done in the final game compared to the others. And for the most part, that's everything we know. They have been very secretive about some of these other powers and abilities she'll have and her backstory, but once again, all this will be answered in the DLC itself, and this was more just to get fans interested and introduced to the character. The next character page we were given is for Chef Saltbaker, and the paragraph says, quote, "Here to help our heroes on their magical quest across a strange new isle. The jovial and garrulous Chef Saltbaker is the greatest culinary expert in all the land. As the elder Kettle is to Cuphead and Mugman, the jolly Saltbaker is to Miss Chalice, a veteran guide able to grant magical powers with his wondrous baked goods." With the food theme of the delicious last course, we knew we needed a chef for a lead. Looking to cartoon classics like Van Buren's 1934 Pastry Town Wedding for inspiration, we wanted to come up with an iconic design that could carry the DLC story and be a cheerful counterpart to Miss Chalice's determination. From eggs to mushrooms, we tried a number of personified patriarchs, but we went with the salt shaker motif for both its metal topper doubling as a chef's torque blanche, and salt itself being the metaphorical key ingredient that makes a recipe work. And once again, I think fans are excited to have another friendly character and just building out this world and introducing more characters and fleshing out the connection between him and Miss Chalice. The next aspect of the DLC we have to talk about is an untitled snow boss, and the description says, quote, "For bosses in the delicious last course, we look to find overarching themes that were commonly used in 1930s cartoons that we hadn't explored yet. From a Ted Estenbaugh 1933 short The Snowman to Ub Iwerk's 1934 cartoon take on Jack Frost, a monstrous personification of the cold has been a familiar foe to cartoon leads of the era. Wanting to mix those rubber hose classics with our oft beloved fighting and role-playing game character inspirations, we look to abominable beasts like Sasquatch from Deathstalkers and Hermano from Final Fantasy VI to add big personality to our giant snowman. Initial concept took a more gorilla-like motif, similar to the creature from Betty Boop's Halloween Party, but eventually we started moving in a more dark and twisted direction. As animator Jake Clark kept pushing further into a more sinister design, we started to find our snowman beast with visual nods to ice bosses from the Sega Genesis Ghostbusters game. Adorned with shackles and topped with a mysterious orange bucket, the booming snow beast holds many secrets to his origin. And the next page of the art book shows off a few of the snow monster animations, plus an area and design where we will be fighting the boss. They give another description for the area. They say, quote, "From the towering walls to the sea of a ruler, we wanted the background of the ice stage to look like you were embattled with a monster in the pit of a frosty Roman Colosseum. We wanted the denizens of the building to have a culture all their own. So we looked to putting symbols and iconography around the stage to convey a mysterious cult-like intent to the conflict they cheer on. With splashes of orange and yellow contrasting the cool blues of the ice walls, background painter Caitlin Russell studies the palettes, painting techniques, and shot framing used to create the snow and cold in the icy background of cartoons like Ub Iwerk's Showtime and Disney's Donald Duck short, The Hockey Champ. For our falling snow, we reference the multi-layered technique seen in the 1935 Silly Symphony, Three Orphan Kittens, to create an era-appropriate blizzard for any time the snow beast smashes the ground." And for the most part, that closes up everything around that boss, and there's one more boss and area they were given in the art book. And the next boss is another creation that was also teased in the trailer for the DLC, and the untitled mountain boss description says, quote, "Originally a denizen hinted at in a rugged ridgestone, this part man, part mountain monstrosity is a member of a race of giants that literally become the mounts that form the landscape. Looking to expand the mythos of the Isles, we thought of these massive slumbering beings so old and sedentary that they have calcified into stone, covered in greenery, and become one with the earth. Much to our bearded bruisers' dismay, a society of gnomes have made their homes among these mountains, and they've been steadily mining the rocks, disturbing the sleep of the giant. He's awake now, and he's not happy about it." From early sketches to final animation, this boss changed very little. a callback to Fleischer's 1933 Betty Boop cartoon, The Old Man of the Mountain. The mountain's detailing and expressions were also influenced by the Gian in Disney's Grave Little Tailor. Giants and gnomes are commonly fairy tale cast members, and we wanted to put our own spin on the classic big versus small contrast in a Cuphead boss battle. The page also includes some sketches and includes a final written section that says, quote, "Conceptual sketches were done by Hannah Abihana. While you don't see the lower body or feet of the boss during the fight, when fleshing out the final concept for a character, we conceptualize the entirety of the figure to feel how they would work in the fictional universe." Moving on to the area where we fight the boss, the background description says, quote, "The basic concept for this background went through a number of iterations to convey the story we wanted to tell during the fight and visually separate it enough from the previous mountainous backgrounds we had done. The core mythos was a group of gnomes literally living on our fearsome foe, so background painter Caitlin Russell originally theorized of the diminutive society carving their homes out of tree trunks sprouted from the mountain's earth. Later, we moved to a depiction of a more traditionally settled town, seen from far away for multiple reasons. Primarily, we wanted to give the habitations a sense of history, a hint towards the idea that the gnomes had settled on the mountains long ago, implying that our grumpy mountain man had been sleeping for even longer than that, stretching his legacy to feel ancient. Secondly, by reaching the landscape much further into the distance, it allowed us to create a believable sense of height, that you were actually fighting a giant atop a mountain towering over the basin below. And the last page shows some additional mountain designs, including the homes for the gnomes, and closes out by saying, quote, "Working with painter Caitlin Russell, animator Hannah Abihana, sketched some conceptual designs for different mountain people to place across the landscape. Initially, we were going to have this boss be a lone giant, but we felt it created a more interesting mythology to imply there may be a whole race of such beings." And for the most part, that's the last page that includes real information about the DLC. I would highly recommend, if any of that sounds interesting, there is a whole art book out there that includes so much more about the game and information about the bosses. So go check that out if you are interested, but that really covers the art that I wanted to talk about and some of the first details we've gotten about these bosses. I want to move forward and still discuss a few bosses that were cut out of the original game. And because of the massive attention to detail and sales this game has obtained, fans have combed through all the footage and game code to find everything that was cut out of the game. One of the enemies was a demon bat boss, another enemy was a spider, which would have been a flight level, and another was called Jelly the Octopus on the airship. And it's normal during the course of game development to not finish ideas or move on to better ideas for bosses, and usually nothing becomes of these other than just fan speculation of what this boss battle could have been like. But a producer on the Cuphead DLC did an interview with Facebook Gaming after the release of the Cuphead DLC trailer, and said one of the reasons the team was making this DLC was so they could utilize some of the bosses that were left on the cutting room floor and the team wanted to revisit. They didn't think that the bosses would fit in any other game, like a sequel, and wanted to push some of these ideas through the development process on a DLC, which means we could be seeing the return of some of these bosses, plus others that we don't even know were in development, or were just basic ideas and sketches. So if there is a cut boss you have been waiting for, it looks like this DLC will be made for you. Of course, we don't know which ones they're going to include, but the fact that she states that yes, they have an emphasis already on bringing back cut content, if you have been following this game and know about a lot of these, you can be excited that we will probably see more of them. After this, the team was quiet until July of 2019. They were hard at work in development for the project, and due to the nature of hand-drawn segments, music composition, and general game development, they announced the first delay of the Cuphead DLC and released a new teaser trailer to announce it. The team now announced the game would be coming in 2020 instead of 2019, but added Nintendo Switch to the release platforms, and the new gameplay that was included in this trailer shows off the untitled mountain and snow boss. Chad Moldenhauer, the co-director of Studio MDHR, sent Games Media a small description to explain the delay. He said, quote, "While we initially announced a 2019 release date for the Delicious Last Course expansion, our highest priority is making sure this new adventure meets the meticulous level of care and quality we always strive for. We wanted to be absolutely certain that this next adventure feels at home in the world of Cuphead and is full of moments that surprise and delight players. Furthermore, the development of the original game taught us a great deal about the importance of making things in a way that's healthy and sustainable for our team. With that in mind, we're taking a page out of Chef Saltbaker's book and spending the necessary time to get the recipe just right. This means that we'll be moving the release of the Delicious Last Course to 2020. This wasn't an easy decision to make, but we're confident it's one that will result in a higher quality experience that's all sweeter when it does arrive." And while most fans do not like delays, once again the studio has proven themselves that they know better than anyone when the game is ready and they don't want to release something that's half finished. And one benefit of self-publishing is they aren't withheld to any release dates or fiscal years other than their own, and they're not held to their publisher's ideas of when this has to come out, which means they can push the game as much as they want, considering they only recently launched on the PlayStation 4, which gives them extra funding for their project and all the residual funding from people always checking out and buying the game. During this time, the DLC graphic was accidentally posted on the Xbox website stating that the DLC was available now, when it clearly wasn't. It's not a real worthwhile story, but if you remember seeing articles about the DLC being available or anything similar, this is where the rumors stem from, and I thought I should at least bring it up because I've seen a lot of articles when this happened. And moving on, once again the studio was quiet for another year until November of 2020, when the team took to Twitter to announce another delay for the project. The team said, quote, "While the Delicious Last Course is a continuation of Cuphead and Mugman's grand adventure, it's also the conclusion to the story that began that fateful day at the Devil's Casino. In true Studio MDHR, we aren't content for this final chapter to be anything less than our best work. Throughout development, we've challenged ourselves to put everything learned from making Cuphead into the quality of the Delicious Last Course's animation, design, and music. Meeting this standard has been extremely challenging for us amid the global pandemic that has affected so many of our fellow developers. Rather than compromise on our vision in response to COVID, we've made the difficult decision to push back the release of the Delicious Last Course until we are confident it will delight the Cuphead community the way we feel it should. We know many of you have been waiting to return to the Inkwell Isles, and our goal is to make the trip back there next year a truly magical one." And once again, with this delay, the team announced more platforms the DLC would be launching on. So now the game is coming to the PlayStation 4 and Apple, as well as the Switch and all the previous announced platforms. I know the year is outdated in this graphic, but the platforms are not. And I think the team sums up the reasoning well for another delay. Development takes time, and COVID hasn't helped that project, especially considering music where they do a full orchestra and everything they do requires a lot of people in a small area at once. Also, since they first announced the project, they are now promising more platforms, all of which take time to optimize and develop for. And I want to close out by saying once again, I still stand by that I think this project will be more in the vein of Cuphead 1.5 rather than traditional DLC, and I think everyone will be shocked by the amount of content in this DLC when it finally launches in 2021. As for release, I'd say it's impossible to tell. For me, I'm going to plan on late 2021 and be surprised if it's anything sooner than that. Either way, that is everything we know about Cuphead the Delicious Last Course, and where I'm going to end this video. Make sure to like and share, subscribe for weekly gaming news, and I will see you guys in the next one.